record. Hey, welcome. We're back with Encouraging Conversations. I'm Judy Cruz over here in Holland, Michigan, and I am an artist and business person and a coach. And I have here my friend Crystal. And Crystal, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. I am KCrystal Griffith, and I am over here in the Rockies. And, you know, sometimes we need a little extra encouragement on those emotions and our regulation. So the Lord really just revealed a couple of strategies to me that I got to share with many people now over some videos about how to manage those emotions, how to walk in the wisdom of our emotions, and the reality of what those emotions do to our body. And so from there, it's been quite a ride to help other people.
I like that. I saw you shared the list of the ones. I mean, I've just heard you talk about it and knew that was something I thought would be great to share out here. But then you have a whole YouTube channel that shares a lot of different topics too. What are some of those topics?
So I really wanted to go through almost all of the emotions that we have on that famous emotion wheel, if you've seen it before. And if no one has, please let me know, and I'm happy to send you a copy of that. But that emotions wheel really talks about your primary emotions and then kind of the secondary emotions to that. So really fear is actually related to anger. So when we realize those connections, we can begin to really address how to handle those in our body. So for example, the very first video that I started was really helping people understand that we kind of have two brains. So we have upstairs brain and downstairs brain. And upstairs brain, right in the prefrontal cortex, is where we're actually working with that executive processing. Now, if you've ever had a head injury of any sort, concussion, TBI, that's me, kiddos had 11 concussions, that prefrontal cortex tends to not work quite as well as we would like it to. So we have a little scatterbrain, things that mimic a lot of ADHD, things that keep us distracted enough that we can't stay focused. And so when we are in upstairs brain, we need to understand that we need to keep that part of our brain working well. So when that part of our brain doesn't work well, we tend to slide down the stairs to what I call downstairs brain. And downstairs brain is when we are having meltdowns and tantrums and beating on the door for our teenager to get out of the bathroom, right? Or the teenager's having a meltdown because they don't want to go to bed and they're trying their hardest to manipulate some more TV time. And you're like, for the fourth time, go to bed. So when we are in downstairs brain, it is really important that we understand our amygdala is basically hijacking and paralyzing that prefrontal cortex where all that rational judgment actually should be happening. So we have to get back to upstairs brain. So the best thing that we can do when we are in a connection with somebody who's gone to downstairs brain is to not go with them. They can be there, but we need to realize that we need to regulate ourselves. Because if we go to downstairs brain with them, it's going to be out of control pretty quickly. And so using the understanding of how our emotions work, how they are affecting our body, and what we need in those moments is really important. So for a long time, we had lists all over our house of 5 or 6 things that would bring my kiddo out of downstairs brain. Do you need your music? Do you need to draw? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need headphones just to cancel out the world for a few minutes? Do you need a nap? Our favorite one is, do you need protein? Because they are teenagers and they eat a lot of sugar. So we might need to.
There's so many things that affect us, aren't there? You know, I mean, if we've been inactive all day, movement just changes things.
Yes.
You know, and you talk about the different parts of the brain. Now, I have not gotten down to the scientific names of parts of where it's processing at all, but it is too. Creativity, it's like, I have to go paint. I need a creative time to put the logic away and aside because I am just feeling the tension, not necessarily anger, you know, and maybe I'm excited to go watch some of your videos to see a little more, but we don't always know what we're experiencing. We just know we need something to shift. So what are those? You said some of the things were even just food action, or rest, right? Basically.
Those are the big three. And really, the other thing that I would tell you is weight, actually. So for a large population, they actually need weight on them to actually pressurize acupuncture sites. And so not for an Eastern medicine piece here, but just that weight of comfort, because it's like a really big bear hug. So a lot of people, this is a great tip. If you have a family member or somebody that you know goes to the ER a lot, the ER has actually started carrying weighted blankets. And so definitely ask for one if you like a lot of weight. So for example, I am not a huge weight person, but I do like something on my feet when I sleep. And if it's not there, even if it was an extra pillow just to put that kind of weight on my feet, I am not going to sleep that night. So the poor hotel, when we go to a hotel, I have to have like 5 extra pillows to make me be able to sleep at night. It's quite funny. They're like, are you going to use all these on the same bed? I'm like, yep, every last one of them, because your pillows are like this small. I need bigger pillows, right? So when we realize what we need, we should ask for it, because we want to stay in upstairs brain and we want to stay regulated, right?
Yeah.
So that weight, there's a great organization called capable.com. And she actually started designing weighted blankets, capes, vests, scarves. And they are so super soft. And so she started those for her daughter, who needed weighted items to calm her down from her anxiety. And soon as she would put that vest on, or as soon as she'd put that scarf or blanket on her, the whole demeanor of her child would just shift and change. Because what's
that website again?
Capable.com.
Okay.
So it's CAPEABLE. And it's an amazing story. Marna started that organization, and then it was actually purchased by a pretty big brand name. So that was exciting for them. And so Capable allows you different options of what you want to use, what you want to wear. So we actually bought one of those vests, and we keep it in our ER kit because we tend to go to the ER a lot. So we just bring our own weighted stuff now. But it keeps the brain at peace. It keeps the body in check and regulated, because anytime you have a medical situation or even anxiety or high trauma or high stress, just in the last week, our country's had so much high stress, that we do need to think about how can we stay regulated when the world seems to be falling apart. And so weight is just one of those options to help them get through.
It is a safer option than many other options taken by people. Amen. So it's true. And I think even for PTSD people, I've walked with a few. I think that, I'm going to check out their site, because I know some of them feel that comfort and security with the weighted items as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing. A lot of people don't understand what PTSD really is. So could I take a second to explain that?
Sure, because I know you've done some study. Yes, ma'am.
A little bit here or there.
Yeah.
But PTSD is really an interaction of fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. So there's actually multiple F's there. We always stop at fight, flight, freeze, or faint. But there's actually fawn as well, which is people pleasing. And a lot of people don't realize that is actually part of that paralyzation of that prefrontal cortex for your rational judgment, for understanding sequencing, for making not just rational judgment, but decisions overall. So when we are in high stress situations, let's say you're out hiking in the woods. We live in the Rockies. We have a lot of mountain lions here. We've had bears down the street from my house. Those are super fun when they're climbing the tree. And everybody wants pictures down at the base of the tree. And you're like, what are you doing?
Yes.
I got nothing. So anyway, so we watch from afar on our porch. So when you're in those situations and you're walking in the woods and you hear something, so your body instantly goes on alert, right? And this could be any kind of high alert situation. If you're in an abusive situation, it could be the person entering the house. If you are in a military situation and you are on patrol, you're constantly having to scan and be alert to all areas of your body, right? So it doesn't always have to be like the little things, it can be the bigger things, but it can also be if you've ever been in a car accident and now you're back in a car, and every time you pass a red car, you tense up because it was a red car that hit you last time and it was pretty severe. So those fight, flight, freeze, fawn situations can be any of those range of situations. So the minute that you hear something in the woods, the first thing you're going to do is go, I need a defense mechanism. You're going to find a stick usually, right? So now with your stick, you have to make a decision. Well, in fight, flight, freeze, or faint, you're at this place that you can't really make good decisions. And so you have choices. You can beat off whatever's making the noise. You can take that stick as kind of a helper, kind of like somebody carrying around the bat in the middle of the night, right? I'm just going to take it just in case, right? But you're going to hightail it out of there. That's flight, right? Or you just hold it and you freeze. Or your sympathetic and parasympathetic systems kind of go whoosh, and guess what happens? You faint. And so that is actually what's happening. Now, the problem with the military situation and first responder situations, and honestly, abusive situations as well, is they never can do what's called a discharge of that plan of attack. So whether they're going to fight it, whether they're going to flee it, whether they're going to stand there and hold it just to see what's going to happen, they never get that option. So that plan is kind of buried in the central nervous system. So then when they come back over from overseas and they hear something backfire, and I know this from a good friend of mine, when he heard the cars backfiring, he was literally under a table. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, that was a gun. I'm like, that was a car.
No, just like fireworks and more. And someone
Absolutely.
I know was kidnapped and shot, you know, not killed, but I mean, just anything sets them off too. We just don't know what will set people off.
And we don't. And so in that nervous central system, it basically is holding that trauma. And even though I was just walking in the woods, like, what's the trauma, right? But the fact is, it's still trauma to ourselves, trauma to our bodies, which is why we should never be comparing trauma to trauma. Well, you've had a harder life. No. Trauma is trauma to the body. And so people even look at my life and they're like, I don't know how you live at the ER as much as you do. Well, it's just my life.
And with humor.
Right. I mean, you have to, or you're going to go crazy, right? But that's my life. But the reality is, if somebody else tried to leave my life, they would have had a nervous breakdown by now, honestly, because it's just the amount of trauma that I'm used to dealing with and how I have to deal with it. And so when we look at how they're not discharged in the nervous system, and then they have those triggers come up and up and up, and they're still not able to discharge it. And that's why I love what God did with this video series. So he downloaded that whole format to me, and God bless him. He gave me 24 hours notice before I was supposed to start it. I love God. He's so much fun.
Oh, this was one of those God gave me a thing too. But you have 60 days worth of stuff on there, 60 different ones.
I do. I went through, it was supposed to be 365 days and I got a head injury at a hospital taking care of my kid. So I had to stop for a bit. But it's really the primary 60 that I think are going to help people the most anyways. It's going to be understanding how that PTSD works. It's going to be understanding how both sides of your hemisphere interact with each other. And then it's going to talk about the cerebellum and what the cerebellum actually does in fight, flight, freeze. But then the cool thing is, each emotion that we talk about, one day it's going to be anger, another day it's going to be fear, another day it's going to be disappointment, another day it's going to be being lethargic. And one, I'm going to define them for you because you do need to have a better understanding. A lot of people attribute a lot of things to anger, and it's not really anger. It could be fear, disappointment, or exhaustion even. And so I want you to have a really good working definition of each emotion. And then we talk about the negatives of that emotion. We want you to really understand, how is that emotion within your body affecting it physically and emotionally? Because we miss that sometimes. And when you're angry and you think you are entitled to something, or you think something should have gone a different way, you will hold those emotions inside and they will come out.
And it's impacting your health. Yes. Not just your emotional, but physical health as well.
Absolutely. Feelings buried alive never die, folks. They don't.
Yeah.
They will always come out, whether that be in anxiety, whether that be in phobias, whether that be in physical manifestations. You know, there was a person that I knew that was, by the world standard, had absolutely every right to hate her dad, every right. And, you know, it was a situation where he should have been under a jail. And she carried that hatred with her for so long that she developed lung cancer, and it ate her from the inside out. And it was so clearly that connection to that amount of hatred that people will actually say she died of a broken heart. What she died of was actually grief over that situation, over that relationship, over that hatred that she had to carry for so long and couldn't release. And so grief actually lives in your lungs. And so had she just been able to, and I want to preface this, I'm going to say, had she been able to forgive her dad, never intentionally saying to you, that means reconciliation. Forgiveness does not mean that.
No,
and a lot of people think they go side by side.
Not always, no.
They don't. And really, to make sure that you stay healthy, you might have to disconnect from even a family member because it's so toxic. And so I just want to encourage you guys to realize that forgiveness is really about you.
It's the personal.
Right. And it is releasing you from that situation. You know, my daughter took an interesting health and wellness class a couple of semesters ago. And I loved this example about forgiveness and trust, because forgiveness doesn't imply trust either. Because if they have harmed you, the trust is broken. And so her example was, if you were a person with really long hair, you have to envision me with long hair. I have short hair now, right? And I went to bed, and the person that I loved the most in the world came in with scissors in the middle of the night and cut off my hair. I could forgive them for doing it. The fact is, it was intentional and deliberate. We need to handle those situations, right?
Right.
Is it safe to now be in the presence of this person, right? And so I'm going to say no, just for example. It's not. So separation would be in order there until both parties could work through what just happened, because that in itself is a whole deal. But then, why did it happen? Still no excuse for what happened, though. I want to be clear, right? But then if I could forgive that person for cutting off my hair, that does not imply retrust. And if you think about how long it takes for hair to grow back, what is that? Like half an inch? My hair grows so fast, you'd get a whole inch for me in a month. But that's not going to give my hair to here. And so that's how long trust takes to rebuild.
Yep.
And so what do we do during that time? There should absolutely be a separation of physical space, so you, as the person who has been victimized, feel safe. Because if you don't feel safe, back to our original conversation of fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn, you're going to be living in those 4 F's, all the time.
Continually.
and you're never going to get out of it. And it would be as if you had gone overseas to a base that had been attacked or wherever that was. And so now you're trying to live your life, but you're on high alert, high vigilance, and you don't know why. Then you're keeping your cortisol. Then you have different systems going in your body that are just ramping up. And the fact is, a lot of things can happen in your body from keeping all that inside. So that's one of the things that I work with people on, is different types of inner healing and what's called emotional freedom technique for tapping, to get that electrical charge out of those emotions.
That's good. I mean, some of what you're saying, I've never called it PTSD, but after doing some extended stays in other countries, just coming back to the US brought anxiety, and going into the grocery store here, when you're used to just walking through a village every day, it was just too much. And I still don't like to be around big crowds. I can be, but there's a lot of little things we don't understand. It doesn't have to be something drastic in our life. It can even be the simple things that have just impacted us. And Crystal, you've shared a lot of great things and studied a lot of amazing things too, to have understanding for your own life and your daughters. And I just want to give thanks for coming to share some of that with us today. And we're going to put the links to your YouTube channel. And also too, if you want to contact her, I have a link and you can give her a call. And I want to thank you for being on today and sharing this. And hopefully you'll come join us again.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that those videos will help people understand their emotions better and partner with them. And I will let you know they are Christian based. And so as you move through the video, you're going to begin to hear very specific verses that are going to support how to turn those negative emotions more into positive emotions. Because I want you to be able to filter those through without having all that negative rise and charge in your system. So you can walk in peace, because you guys deserve to walk in peace. You don't deserve to walk in fear. And so I just want to help you guys to the best of my ability.
That's so true. So we'll just pray for those who will watch this. And we just say, thank you, God. Thank you that you knew in advance what Crystal would just share with us today, what we talk on. And you knew in advance who would watch this and how you, God, will minister through this time. So we just thank you for that. Thank you that you're just continuing to guide each of us on how we can help others in their healing journey.
Amen.
Well, guys, thank you for watching with us today, and leave comments. If you've got questions, please let us know in comments. You can subscribe or like the pages, and we'll bring some more encouraging conversations. So have a good day. Thanks, Crystal.